In the year 217 BC and after the defeats of Trebia and Trasimene, the Senate of Rome decided to appoint Quintus Fabius Maximus as dictator, unifying the military command to better coordinate their efforts against Carthage. Our army continued advancing towards southern Italy. Fabio caught up with us, but although we presented battle, he did not accept the challenge and followed our movements for a long time using the war of attrition. We burned the crops on the Campanian plains, but Fabio still did not want to fight us. At this moment we found ourselves trapped by the Romans, who had occupied all the heights around us and blocked our exit from the plain. When night came, we sent 2,000 cows with torches in their horns along a path parallel to the one we needed to take. The Romans moved in that direction, and with the passage now clear we were able to leave. Then we took over the city of Geronium and prepared for the winter. Fabius's strategy was not well regarded in Rome, since they wanted a quick resolution of the conflict, fearing that some of his allies would go over to our side. After Fabius' term ended and after new elections, Gaius Terentius Varro and Lucius Aemilius Paulus were elected consuls. In July 216 BC, leaving Geronium, we head towards the region of Apulia, of vital importance for its wheat, and the city of Cannae, location of a supply depot for the Roman army. He knew that this move would force Rome to attack, and it did. The Senate ordered the consuls to confront our army, and they marched south. The battle was finally going to take place. Our camp was on an easily defensible elevated area north of the Aufidus River. This river crossed a plain full of crop fields. At that time, we had 8,000 African infantry, 3,000 Iberians, 20,000 Gauls and 8,000 light infantry armed with slings and javelins. Our cavalry was made up of 4,000 Numidians, 2,000 Iberians, and 4,000 Gauls. In total about 40,000 infantry and 10,000 cavalry. The Romans built two camps for their immense army. The largest of them is north of the river, near our position, and the second smallest is on the south bank to protect their access to the water and prevent our troops from resupplying on the plain. They were convinced that this time they would defeat us and wanted to force us into combat. They had gathered the largest army in their entire history. 8 legions reinforced with more troops for a total of 80,000 infantry and 6,000 cavalry, between Romans and allies. Both sides stayed in our camps for 2 days. At dawn on a sunny August 2nd, and under the command of the consul Varro, the Romans left their fortifications and deployed their army on the south bank of the river. They left 10,000 Triarians in the largest of the camps to defend it. From our position we were able to observe how the Romans deployed their forces on terrain carefully chosen by both consuls. To the right of the line, with the river at its side, 1,600 Roman cavalry under the command of the consul Paulus. In the center, under the command of Gnaeus Servilius Geminus, the 4 Roman legions with 2 allied legions on each side. Varro had decided to give more depth to the infantry formation by leaving less space between the manivles and placing them in more ranks than usual. In front of the infantry about 15,000 skirmishers. Varro himself stood next to the 4,800 men of the allied cavalry on the Roman left wing that reached the base of the hills that limited the plain to the south. By placing their army with the river on one side and the hills on the other, the Romans intended that our largest cavalry could not surround them on any of their flanks, while their numerical superiority in infantry managed to defeat the bulk of our troops. After descending from our camp and crossing the Aufidus, I formed my army as follows. 4,000 Gaul cavalry and 2,000 Iberians under the command of Hasdrubal on the left flank in front of the consul Paulus. On the right flank the 4,000 Numidian cavalry under the command of Hanno opposing Varro's allied cavalry. In the vanguard of the center are skirmishers armed with slings and javelins. Further back, our center was formed by a long line of companies of Gallic warriors with Iberian companies between them. The center of this line had a higher density of troops, since it would be key in my strategy. Finally, and located on our flanks behind the cavalry, 2 groups of African veterans, the elite of the army. Many of these soldiers, who had been fighting until then as hoplites, were equipped and trained to use the Roman weapons and armor that we had obtained as loot in previous combats. The battle began with an exchange of projectiles between the skirmishers of both armies. I immediately gave orders to Hasdrubal and Hanno to attack the enemy's flanks. The success of my strategy depended on us managing to defeat the enemy cavalry as soon as possible. On the right flank, the Numidians used their usual tactics of attacking and retreating, causing losses in the ranks of the Roman allies. The little space between the Romans and the river forced ours to charge frontally on the left flank. Despite the initial impetus, the charge stalled when it encountered the enemies in compact formation and encouraged by the presence of the consul Paulus. They soon began to falter due to our numerical superiority. Furthermore, the consul was seriously wounded, which definitively decided the combat on that flank. The surviving Romans fled, pursued by a portion of our horsemen, while the rest advanced through the gap that had opened and, surrounding the Roman formation, headed to attack the horsemen on the opposite flank from behind. Seeing that Hasdrubal's flank was won, I sent our skirmishers to the rear. At that moment the Roman horns began to sound, ordering their infantry to advance. My brother Mago and myself took control of the infantry companies in the center and advanced, while the rest moved more slowly the further away from the center they were. This maneuver caused a convex line to be formed with a greater density of troops in the center than at the ends, with the idea of slowing down and containing the advance of the Roman infantry. The tide of legionnaires was impressive as it approached. The dust raised by the armies was pushed by a light wind against the Romans, making their vision difficult. When both forces got close enough, the Romans launched a rain of pylons, causing casualties in our ranks. Shortly after, both lines collided and engaged in bloody hand-to-hand combat. After hard fighting, our center was giving ground due to enemy pressure. First the line became straighter and ended up curving towards the south, as I had predicted it would happen. The wounded consul Paulus had entered among his infantry, encouraging his men when he saw that we were retreating. The legions in the center continued to advance, sensing victory, moving deeper into our formation. In addition, more soldiers from the legions on the flanks were moving forward to fill the gap that this advance created in the center. So many legionaries in a small space became more and more compacted without being able to fight with their full potential. My strategy was paying off, but it all depended on the line holding. Thinking that this was the moment of maximum Roman advance, I reinforced the center with the skirmishers that I had sent to the rear. In their effort to destroy our center, the Romans had ignored our African heavy infantry who were at the ends of our inverted crescent line. The two companies of Africans approached the center and attacked the mass of legionaries on both sides. Meanwhile, on the right wing, Varro's cavalry had managed to maintain a stable front in the fight against the Numidians. However, when Hasdrubal arrived from the other flank after defeating Paulus, they were attacked from behind by Gallic and Iberian horsemen and, seeing themselves surrounded, they finally fled. Hasdrubal sent Hanno and the Numidians to pursue them, killing large numbers. However, the consul Varro managed to escape. The rest of the Iberian and Gaul horsemen advanced against the rear of the legions, thus enclosing the enemy army. The entire Roman advance was stopped and their pocketed army could only defend themselves from ours who attacked them from all sides. What happened next was a massacre, the Romans trying to fight their way out of the trap they had gotten themselves into, but their ranks being so compressed that many could not even take up their weapons. Only when it began to get dark did the massacre end. Consul Paulus had perished along with high military ranks, former consuls and 80 senators. About 50,000 Romans perished and 19,000 were taken prisoners, 4,000 on the battlefield and the rest in the two camps. Our casualties that day were about 8,000 men. Only 14,000 Roman soldiers managed to flee, most of whom headed to the nearby city of Canusium. We had managed to inflict on Rome the greatest defeat in its entire history. News of the disaster at Cannae reached Rome and chaos reigned there for a time. There was no army to defend the capital anymore, with one consul dead and the other discredited. The Senate took action to maintain order by appointing a new dictator and rejecting a peace offer we made to them and preparing to raise a new army. Finally, a large part of the cities of southern Italy joined us, canceling their alliance with Rome. Even King Philip V of Macedonia declared war on the Romans. Although many of my lieutenants did not agree, I decided not to attack the city of Rome itself. We did not have the siege equipment or army necessary to assault such a large city. Furthermore, she was not dead, just wounded, and what we needed were more battles like Cannae to put an end to their power permanently and force them to sign a peace favorable to our interests. That was my decision, and even today I wonder if it was the right one.